Are you truly happy if you live in a place that's always warm, filled with food, and completely free of threats? And if you're set loose on a wide, untamed prairie, surrounded by wild animals with no one to protect you, are you really living or just surviving? That wasn't a rhetorical question. It was one a father once asked his son during a dusty, windswept summer in the American West. Ethan was 13, a kid born and raised in the comfort of a modern city in California. His days were filled with air conditioning, food deliveries, and never-ending online classes. Life revolved around glowing screens, video games, and quick conversations through social media. But that summer, everything changed. His mom sent him to stay with his dad, a horse wrangler living out in the rugged hills of Montana. To Ethan, it felt like exile. No Wi-Fi, no phone, no PlayStation. Just endless hills, the dry smell of burnt grass, the constant scent of horses, and a father he barely knew. On his first day in Montana, Ethan curled up on a creaky wooden chair inside his dad's modest cabin. He stared out the dusty window at the rolling hills beyond, wondering what he had done to deserve this kind of punishment. His father, Jacob, was a man of few words. Sun-weathered skin, hands like sandpaper, shaped by decades of outdoor work. He didn't try to bond with Ethan. He simply handed him tasks. Muck out the stables, fill water troughs, follow him to the pasture. Ethan did it all reluctantly, his mind always drifting back to city life, where everything was easier. But slowly the wild began to change him. One early morning, with the sun just peeking over the hills, Jacob took Ethan out back to the horse pens. There were 2 horses he had recently brought in from a long roundup. One, named Shadow, stood inside a sturdy wooden stall, roofed, shaded, stocked with fresh hay and clean water. The other, called Storm, roamed freely in a rocky, sun-scorched open field with no shelter, no luxuries. Jacob looked at Ethan and asked, "Which one do you think will be stronger 6 months from now?" Ethan didn't even hesitate. "Shadow, of course," he said. "He's safe, well-fed, doesn't have to deal with anything dangerous. Storm's out there with the sun, the wind, maybe predators. That can't be good." Jacob just smiled, his eyes carrying a quiet patience. He said nothing, just patted Ethan on the shoulder and walked away. Days passed. Jacob didn't press Ethan to talk, but he gave him space to observe, and Ethan began watching. Shadow barely moved anymore. He ate, he drank, he slept. His coat was shiny, perfectly groomed, but something in his eyes had faded. It was as if he had forgotten how to be a horse. Ethan remembered Jacob once said, "Horses were born to run." But Shadow seemed to have let that part of himself go. Storm, on the other hand, told a different story. He looked leaner, sure. A few scrapes marked his back from brushing up against sharp rocks or thorny branches. But his muscles grew more defined by the day. He learned to duck against the prairie winds, leap over rough terrain, and react instantly to any strange sound. One afternoon, a thunderstorm rolled in. Panicked, Ethan grabbed a tarp and rushed outside to shield Storm from the rain. But when he got there, he froze. Storm was galloping at full speed through the muddy field, wild, free, and clearly enjoying every drop of rain. Ethan stood in the downpour, soaked to the bone, and for the first time wondered, could it be that hardship is its own kind of vitamin for life? As weeks passed, Montana no longer felt like a prison. Ethan grew into the rhythm of the land. He began to love riding across open pastures, the wind howling in his ears, sunsets bleeding into the horizon. He didn't miss the city as much. Jacob taught him how to care for horses, read signs in the weather, and listen to the land. But more importantly, he taught Ethan through experience. No long lectures, no cliches, just silent moments that carried answers, if you paid attention. By September, a powerful storm unexpectedly swept through Montana. The wind howled, thick clouds rolled in, and rain came down like a waterfall. Ethan and Jacob worked nonstop, securing the barn, storing up food and water for the horses, doing everything they could to prepare. In the chaos, a gust of wind ripped open one of the stable doors. Shadow, the horse that had spent its entire life sheltered, suddenly found himself outside, right as the storm hit its peak. Ethan ran after him, rain slamming into his face, and witnessed something he would never forget. Shadow stood frozen in the middle of the storm, trembling, eyes wide with panic. His legs wouldn't move, as if his body had no idea what to do. He had never faced real adversity, and the storm was more than he could handle. Ethan tried shouting to him, but the wind swallowed every word. Off in the distance, he spotted Storm, calmly taking shelter beneath a large tree. Storm stood steady, head low against the wind, not frightened, just prepared. In that instant, Ethan understood what his father had been trying to teach him all along. When the skies finally cleared, Ethan and Jacob sat on the porch, watching the soaked prairie stretch out before them. For the first time, Ethan asked a question from the heart. "Why didn't you keep both horses in the stable? Wouldn't that have been safer?" Isn't safety the most important thing? Jacob set his coffee down and looked at him. A horse can live its whole life in a stall, he said, and never know what freedom feels like, but it'll also never know what it means to run. A child can grow up completely protected, never scrape a knee, but they'll never know how strong they really are. Son, success doesn't come from safety. It comes from walking straight into the wind. Those words etched themselves into Ethan's memory. He thought about his life back in the city, a world of perfect schedules and padded comfort, but also a world that felt strangely hollow, like shadow in his stall. In Montana, he'd learned to face discomfort, waking up at 5 a.m. to do chores, riding horses across uneven trails, standing alone in the storm to protect the herd. Every challenge, big or small, had quietly shaped him. Years later, Ethan was living in a different city, working as an environmental engineer after finishing college. He didn't live in Montana anymore, but in his heart, there was always a corner of sky filled with wind and wild horses, reminding him of the greatest lesson he'd ever learned. Life isn't about avoiding storms. It's about learning to ride through them. The story of Ethan and the two horses wasn't just a metaphor. It revealed something deeply human. A Stanford study once found that people exposed regularly to microstressors, the small, everyday struggles, were more resilient during major life crises. In elite military training programs, soldiers are pushed to their physical and mental limits, sleep deprivation, hunger, brutal endurance drills, so that their brains learn how to face fear. That way, when they enter combat, they don't panic. They've already weathered the smaller storms. Jacob's two horses were living proof. You don't need someone to teach you how to endure. You just need life to teach you. Wind, rain, storms, thunder, what we see as harsh conditions are often life's most patient and powerful teachers. Shadow, living in constant comfort, had lost his survival instinct. But Storm, who braved the wilderness day after day, had become the embodiment of resilience and freedom. Ethan returned to the city after that summer a different person. He no longer saw success as a trophy, a degree, or a fat bank account. He understood that success is the ability to endure and come back stronger after every fall. That true strength isn't about never getting hurt. It's about having the courage to keep moving even when you are hurt. And that some horses are simply born to run wild under open skies, not to stand still behind wooden walls. And if you're out there searching for an easier life, maybe you're heading the wrong way. Don't aim for easy, aim to get stronger. Because sometimes, not having a warm stable to return to is the only way you'll ever learn how to run with the wind. Life doesn't promise ease, but it does promise meaning, if you're brave enough to face its storms. Ethan never forgot the image of Storm galloping through the rain, eyes glowing with life. That moment taught him something he'd never read in a book. Freedom is never free, and growing up is never a smooth ride. But if you have the courage to ride into the storm instead of hiding from it, you'll come out stronger, steadier, more alive. At some point, we all have to become that wild horse, muddy, lean, maybe a little battered, but with eyes lit up by the fire of life. A comfortable life won't teach you anything, but a life full of challenges, if you have the courage to truly live it, will teach you everything you need: resilience, freedom, and that unshakable spark in your eyes. Years later, Ethan stood in front of a group of college students, giving a talk. He told them the story of Shadow and Storm. Looking out at those young faces, full of ambition but clouded with anxiety about the future, he said, "Don't fear the storms in your life. Don't run from them. Learn to ride through them, because it's only in strong winds that you'll discover what your wings were made for." His story spread. It became a reminder that life isn't about chasing perfect safety. It's about seeking meaning through the struggle, the setbacks, and every time you choose to rise again. And maybe one day, somewhere in a dusty, wind-blown city filled with broken dreams, you'll remember the image of that horse running free in the rain, and you'll smile. Because deep down you'll know, you too once learned to run, not to escape the storm, but to become who you were meant to be. We can spend our whole lives locked inside our safe stalls, the secure job, the comfortable relationships, the predictable choices. But storms always come, they always will. And when they do, what helps you survive won't be what protected you. It'll be what you've endured. Storm wasn't stronger than Shadow because he was born better. He was stronger because he had been knocked down by wind, scraped by rocks, soaked in cold rain, and still chose to run. And Ethan didn't learn that from books or lectures. He learned it from looking into Storm's eyes, eyes that weren't afraid anymore, because they had already faced the worst and kept moving. So if your life today feels rough, if you feel like the world is testing you more than usual, don't rush to blame it. Maybe this is the moment you're being forged into the freest, fiercest version of yourself. Let the winds blow through your life, not to break you, but to awaken the strength that's been waiting inside. Because only in strong winds do wings discover what they're meant for. And only out on the open prairie, no map, no guide, no guarantees, do we finally learn what it truly means to live. I hope you found this video helpful. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit the like button. It might seem like a small thing, but because of how the YouTube algorithm works, videos with more likes tend to get shown to more people. So your like really helps this video reach others who might need it too. And if you find my content valuable, consider subscribing. It really helps more people discover it. Thanks for watching, and I wish you and your family good health and peace. See you in the next video.